Hello, horror. I don't want to make myself tense, so I'm going to try and proceed and be normal until around about 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, I need to stop whatever it is I'm currently engaged in and doing, and I just need to start going over my debate material. However, I can say, and what I'm going to read right now, is I'm going to read what I wrote for Wick, that I asked him, or rather I didn't argue with him, we compromised, as a presentation for the presser to open the debate as an affirming statement, given everything that happened yesterday. Since it's my platform I'm on right now, I'm going to just read it as I wrote it. He'll have some version of it that he'll have coached down to language that he wants to control for his platform. But I planned on saying this anyways to open my broadcast today. How are you doing? You're at work. I see. Certainly the backing sound effects of the sound of an Arcadia about nothing is not the best background to read this against, but for the sake of humor. Long since in this political cathedral of online influencers and their schools of thought, we have long since needed to respect the rules of engagement that were divorced from the perpetual dramatic incompetence trickster reality of parasocial relationships at its utmost atrium. 1. Don't pap the glass. 2. Respect your opponents. And 3. Don't call for acts of violence. Yesterday we lost a political commentator in the form of Charlie Cook. Before his blood was even cold, people took to social media to cheer on, glorify, and mock and effigy his family, body of work, and legacy, because it become politically expedient and financially lucrative to do so to improve one's status in the parasocial arena. Attached to two threads that, along with Kirk's memory, will haunt the narrative of not just tonight's debate, but also the already fraying social fabric of the American society and the principles we uphold but have overlooked to be self-evident as inalienable human rights. 1. There are transgender users that claim that the MAGA conservative right movement are going to definitely kill trans people over this, quoting that this was already an agenda. Lord have mercy. That this was already an agenda, and that ultimately there are some trans users that don't believe that trans stuff motivates people as hard as Republicans want it to, and claiming that it would be flopping as an electoral strategy in 2022, with users such as Stacey K claiming it definitely motivates a particular group of hateful, violent, prone people. Or, known political opportunist and online OnlyFans model, Merrick, under the name Punished Mother, claiming maybe Charlie Cook should have spent years being a hateful, demagogic fascist, and this wouldn't have happened. Maybe he should take some personal responsibility. Fuck these people, I do not care. They have grifted tirelessly for years to tear this country apart, make everything worse, and pull us all in danger. Charlie Cook wouldn't piss you off, wouldn't piss on you to put you out if you were on fire. An evil man who sold his humanity a long time ago. I will not, when told this is disgusting, you can still delete it. I will not. You're all a bunch of weak, un-American traitors. We used to be a country that knew how to handle fascists. All of you would be fucking goose-stepping in World War II. Replying underneath the post that all of his sycophantic little fans should be standing by y'all's principles. This is the world y'all wanted. Y'all started everything and now you want to cry? All of you are weak. Quoting Charlie Kirk's, it would be a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment. Claiming that he deserved to die because he did something that most people do not do, especially amongst the moderate, especially amongst the conservative, especially amongst the right-wing, moderate, conservative movement. Not antagonizing people, not threatening people's lives, but having open debate. Something that every single one of us as commenters do from the safety of our homes. But he did it by going out into the world and talking to people directly, which put him at risk of being a soft target where someone would unfortunately then take his life. Let it be clear. When the talking stops, the violence starts. The panel stands in agreement for tonight we are the argument's opposition, but we are not each other's enemies. The nemesis of politics are those in the attached tweet threads who would insist that, in Norm Macdonald fashion, that violence against moderate conservative right people would result in violence against trans individuals as much as people of color and non-indigenous ethnicity, as well as using their warped opinions of his views as a platform to launch attacks against his character in a ghoulish fashion. We are here, carrying the event not in disgrace of his memory, but in honor of it. For it should not have required a martyr to mark and recognize where we truly are in discourse, but to also see how bad it has become. We must turn the temperature down. We send thoughts and prayers to Kirk's family, and well wishes to those who would rather sit and witness than stand and speak, and carry on knowing that this event is not a vibe check, but a soul check. Today was a new day, and tomorrow will be another one. We cannot allow the politically, morally, and socially bankrupt to dominate the narrative by ceding ground to them, and we shall be resolutely engaging in the cathedral conversation, not the field of political bloodlust. Good, bad, good, bad. What we feel, chat? He's only 1 year older than I am. I actually no. Technically, once the 27th come around, I would actually be 31 today, or 31 on the day. Excuse me. So technically, I'm 30 in some parts of a fourth on the way to being 31. Not a happy day, and also that kind of actually fit based. Haha. Carl still has good musical taste. But anyways, that's not the only type of message that I've been seeing on social media, and it's not the only type of thing that I've been witnessing people going about and doing. It is, quite frankly, just the tip of the fucking iceberg. And even though there were probably some people who did not stay around for me co-streaming alongside Aiden, we learned about Charlie Cook's death while we were doing the topic about Irina. Technically, we learned about it as we were in the middle of reacting to the very same video that we just finished reacting to on my side of the broadcast before we had the group call. There are so many people, including political influencers, just like the last time it happened, that are going all in. They're either saying that you need to do more violence, or they're mocking his death and saying, ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. And it's as I wrote. It's not just a vibe check, it's a soul check. There are going to be people who are going to disagree with my statement. I doubt that Wick would read it wholesale the way that I wrote it to him, because that was part of the compromise. He gets to have final audit, and he'll be the one reading it rather than me. But I think I'm going to publish that on Twitter. In fact, I'm going to publish it right now. But the fact of the matter is that all of this shit in continuity, it is a failure of self. It's a failure of recognizing where we are, and it is a failure of understanding the purpose of what conversation is meant for. We've long since given away a lot of political ground and a lot of opportunity. And the fact of the matter is that I am not comfortable with that. I am, at the end of the day, a content creator who makes content about drama, who also plays video games, which puts me firmly in a niche of being a clone of Asmongold. The fact that I have already served in Fed government, in state government, in local government, and in a gubernatorial fashion to assist the people of my city locally, if we're trying to do work in my own audience, to assist people, has everything to do with my viewpoint on this. Because it is very clearly a seeding of ground that has happened over time. I was born into a world that does not exist the way that I was told it would exist into the future. And I am a victim of time in that circumstance, but I will not be made a bystander. I will deal with it directly, as I should. Because that's the only thing that I can do. It is my job to do that in the way that I see fit. It's really, really aggressive how people have been. Because it's not just the people on the left that are doing it, it's also the people that are on the right and the people that are in the middle that are accelerationists doing it. It is aggressively infuriating to look at the conversations. It is aggressively infuriating. Because it puts my words yesterday in perspective about what I was talking about in terms of my audience under a microscope. Because for some people, like Ma, or if you're a person who uses Facebook or social apps like that, Instagram or whatever, you're probably coming along and coming across people making grandiose statements of action and violence. Making offhanded jokes, offhanded remarks, dour statements about the man's passing. Making fun of him before his body was even cold. Hoping that it was true, and then gleefully laughing after it was true. It was abysmal the first time somebody was killed. It was abysmal when it was the second time somebody was killed. It was abysmal when they made attempts on Trump's life. It was abysmal when Luigi Mangione decided he was going to be a martyr. There is a ridiculous amount of aggression, and there's lots of fighting words. Literally, as I'm looking at the timeline, as I'm posting this, it is a never-ending concept. It is an endless amount of violence that is being pushed for by people who are unwilling to be the first one forward. And as I'm penning this, or rather before and in the middle of me penning this, I already came across some threads of individuals who are behaving exactly like this, including this one right here. It's embarrassing to think, you guys, that this is a clever point to make. Do the heck in Valerina yourself, then. I'm not interested in petty assassinations. I want state power to be used to silence my political enemies. Political power has always been used in this manner by every government in the history of the world, including all of our lifetimes. I voted for libtards to lose, and I actually meant lose, as in lose everything they spent the last century working for. There will be more political violence in the meantime. Nothing anyone says or does will stop it. I wouldn't encourage any of my followers to involve themselves in it. Charlie Kirk's murder proves that advocacy is much more threatening to the left than political violence. Leftists are scared because they feel cornered, because they know there's no longer capable of advocacy, they know they're out of goodwill, hence they resort to violence. They have nothing to gain by trying to engage the right in dialogue on various loser positions that they've married themselves to. They are effectively persuading people left for them to blah 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 blah. The problem with this is literally the factor that they are calling for state power as a stand-in. It's not an issue of them being caught on it, because you can follow this logic down its logical rabbit hole. Go back to the original post it came from. This came, ironically enough, as most things usually do, from a larger account being retweeted. In this case, the almighty lolly. This is the direction shit's gonna go. Endless escalation, more propaganda, and more stupid-ass division, because nobody can take 2 seconds to act like an adult and go, we really shouldn't be making political violence common. It's using the logic to justify grim shit. The post in question is literally a person doing that extra-ass bullshit from that one celebrity voice coach on The Voice, doing extra shit when she presses the button to make fun of people, making fun of the death of Charlie Kirk. To which this person responded, being a conciliatory little slur is never going to make them stop, and there's no hope for you whatsoever if you haven't figured that out by now. Go make another conciliatory post about Disco Elysium. Okay, pick up a gun and make a difference. Like right now. Be the escalation you want to see in the world. Lol, you're talking online with words. You're so silly. You're so stupid. You're not going to do anything important with this. Okay, pick up a gun. Go change the world, dumbass. It's embarrassing that you thought you were doing something, sweetie. I'm not interested in the assassinations. I want my enemies crushed under my heel. You're not smart. They continue on to say, I'm sure someone such as yourself would love for Anons to throw their lives away in futile assassination attempts.
Put some fucking earbuds on!
Ouch.
You're in public!
Thank you, I'll read that when I'm done. In futile assassination attempts that will change nothing about the systems and organizations that are ruining this country. Incredible. So you did personally declare Trump POTUS and dismantle US aid and interstate ICE operations, or did the government do that? Retard. This is what happens when people who are not actually in politics and do not understand the world of politics call for retardation. He gets into drama because people don't like when he talks because he's effective. That's why they murdered people, Pip. They murdered Charlie Kirk because he was effective. And the thing that people are not understanding is that that is the problem. In the broadcast, to add some levity, I made a joke where Bill, who is very well regarded and known for being a person whose views are approaching extreme, but it's approaching extreme from the position of a UK citizen who is tired of being ruled over and harassed by barbarians, who's about to boog, that I'm going to translate for him. And my Negro translation for him is that there are people out here, such as Merrick, which my point of humor was directed towards. They don't have even 30 minutes. As the meme goes, do you know you have 30 minutes? Yes, 30 minutes. I believe it comes from either a runway show or the runway drag show. They don't even have 30 minutes to prepare for the fallout. It's what's going to happen next. Because it's like I wrote, when the talking stops, the violence starts. And it's never going to happen the way people think it's going to happen. Take this from somebody who's had to hold a service weapon in defense of himself and others. Take it from me, somebody who's had to deal with the criminal element and convince gang members to flip. You do not know who's going to die when you pull out a gun. You can plan every single meticulous little step all the way up to pulling the trigger, but you don't get to decide the definition. You don't get to decide the argument. You don't get to decide the optics. You don't get to decide who will be martyred and who will be remembered. You don't get to decide what the message is. Because that's the problem with making everything political. If everything's political, and everything is an actor upon which you can push action onto, including violence, if everything can become political violence, then it's just chaos and noise. You don't get to decide whose life is ruined. You don't get to decide whose legacy will be remembered. You don't get to decide whose family will get to cry over the graves of the lost and departed. You don't get to mock the dearly departed or those that are grieving them because you decided that the right target got hurt. And you don't get to then turn around and say, actually, sweetie, you can't do that to us. That's cancel culture. You don't believe in cancel culture, do you? Because what needs to happen is that you need to now serve consequences for bringing this chaos out of the goddamn box. We locked it away for a reason. Now you're making people open that box in defense of themselves. And you're opening that box because you want to see what happens. It's the problem with Chaos Goblins. And, as Horror pointed out, people don't seem to know that while that was happening, they didn't realize that his own child ran towards him to be in the line of fire because she was scared of the sound that happened as he was shot in front of multiple people. As well as the fact that if you're cheering on the violence, or even say anything to the degradation of his death, that you're actually cheering on the killing of a soft target. He wasn't shot in a gun range. He wasn't shot while concealed carrying, and that nobody was willing to defend them and pull their weapon in defense of him. He was shot on a campus. My lawn people are here. He was shot dead on a campus. He was disarmed in the public. They disarmed him in public in a soft target environment that guaranteed he would not be able to protect himself. They picked a soft target that didn't have police escort, that didn't have Secret Service protection, that didn't have a standing paramilitary army to help him. They killed somebody for doing the same thing I'm doing right fucking now! Except he went out in public. He put himself at risk. By all means necessary. We're all pussies. We're all inside boys and girls. However, the reason why I call people inside boys and inside girls is much like Zark03, Actual Jake, Actual Hannah, Punished Mother, Merrick, political lolcows like Alyssa McConty, political lolcows and their fucking street soldiers like I Am Griffineer, or, what is his fucking name? Something Myers. The other blue Punished Skull person. Myers of Myers Posting. And certainly people like Dave Paul Riviera, who's still bannovating while being angry that people like Michael Legacy HD Killer would reveal the amount of devs that were cheering on the death of Charlie Kirk. They were willing to shoot and murder an individual who's not even a standing politician. He's just a content person. Excuse me, was a content person. He talked to people. He did IRL versions of Jubilee's Surrounded in public. Hello, good evening, Buster. He did standing public versions of Surrounded in public. Like all the people who came before him. Like Ben Shapiro, like provocateurs like Maui Yiannopoulos, like Christina Hoff Sommers, like any particular person who tends to come up in politics, with the exception of people who are on the left, who always sit as inside boys and girls, trying to debate and control conversations from the live streams. And they murdered him for it. If they're willing to kill him, they're willing to kill me, and they're willing to kill you. And if you are a person who's cheering on his death, and you don't recognize where you are, and understand you don't even have 30 minutes, you better find a local boob, and you better hide under her purse skirt and her apron. Or his purse skirt and his apron. Because if you don't understand where we are, if you don't understand where we are, and you don't take into account that you have less than 5 seconds, then you are only going to be responsible for being a victim on your own terms. Because we can't save everybody. I always say, you cannot teach people hunger. In this situation, you cannot teach people brevity, clarity, and understanding. My wishes go out for all the people who are affected, including his family. The fact of the matter is, 2 young girls lost their parent because somebody, if current reports are true, and the alleged true killer, because they kept finding people that they thought were the suspect that weren't the suspect. Most recent news, at least as projected and claimed by certain figures, like Tim Pool, says that the media is reporting that the shooter is actually a transgender. That makes the debate I'm about to go into even fucking harder. Because the fact of the matter is that Charlie is now haunting the narrative of every single discussion that moves forward. Because the haunting of the narrative is, if you talk about things the left doesn't like, they're going to kill you because you're effective. That's why certain people always are in drama. If we remove the Posian exception, if we accept that Poe, if we accept that Zeno will say shit to get a reaction, he will death post, he will doom post, he will bait post, he will thirst post, he will make comments, he will make comments, and he will create reactions to things because he likes to see people in a relative form of controllable chaos. And only now do we finally see that there is in fact a line that he's not willing to cross when it comes to accelerationism and accelerationism of drama. Then it means that for every single person that is currently adding to the problem, if they are willing to shoot him, and it is to be revealed and is found out after an investigation that it is true, that the killer in question is transgender, this is the kind of thing that is going to make the conversations harder to have. Because people will be scared to talk, and people will be happy to gloat about there being no breath to talk about. End of. Period. There have been people who have long wished for things like this to happen. And the reason you don't want them to happen is that you don't get to control who you're going to be facing. He was the nice one. Charlie Cook was the nice part of the MAGA conservative Christian right. You don't want to see who's standing in the darkness behind him. The right has a light switch. The left have a dimmer knob. The left boils the frog, constantly turning the dimmer knob, getting brighter and brighter and hotter and hotter. They then throw the first punch. It could be an assassination, which would make Charlie Kirk the jump-off point of possibly the beginnings of World War III, as he is now our Archduke Franz Ferdinand. It could be an actual brick thrown at a person's head. It could be fighting words that then leads to the rhetoric, that then leads to the shooting that has taken his life, and has taken the lives of so many other political figures and people whose names and stories aren't remembered because they weren't topical enough to be talked about and made into living memes, like Arena. And then the left pulls their hand back and say, ha 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 ha. No, it's time to stop. All right, we got it all out of our system, guys. Now it's time for reconciliation. No. The right are going to get their lick back. They're going to get their lick back. Because that's not how civil liberty works, and that's not how justice in this situation works. Ironically enough, that's not truly justice. It's just revenge. And that's why it's chaos. You don't get to decide who's going to be the target. You don't get to decide who's going to be considered the fair combatants. Because that's what happens in Civil War. The amount of people who take this to be funny has given me a form of painful diarrhea of the soul. Because they perceive themselves to be safe. Because, nobody can get me from behind my computer screen. And it's not just literal fucking... It's not even just literal fucking people that are playing it like it's a scoreboard. It's actually well-relevant propagandists. Even Dean Withers has had the gumption to recognize where we are and has said, don't make it about political sides because I'll side with the right. How long ago was he calling for people's doxes? How long ago was he doubling down on it? But now it's don't make it about political rights. Don't make it about this. Don't make it about that. I don't think I saved it. But I have versions that I saved of it. So for every single example of individuals like this...
Guys, I think we're missing the point here. Charlie Kirk, he wants to be pew-pew.
I will post every single one of you sick bastards that come up on my feed like this.
Cute. That's why he fights so hard for G-laws to never change. This is his dream. This is poetic. I'm starting to think if he planned this because he loves pew-pew so much. My thoughts.
And individuals like this...
Irritated Raj a little. There is no more coming together.
I don't know why I won't play the first part of this. Or individuals like this.
If you are not registered to vote. If you are not registered to vote.
Why is this trying to loop? There we go.
Hey, so Charlie Kirk just got shot. Maybe there are good guys with guns out there. Update, Charlie Kirk is officially looking up at us, and I'm about to head to the grocery store because I'm making ribs tonight. Oh, but he was a man with a wife and kids. Yeah, and now they're safe from him.
Again, another...
These kinds of individuals say it because they think that it's not going to happen to them. And then when they are crying with tears and red stain in their eyes because it happened to them, because somebody decided they deserve to have it happen to them too, they're going to turn around and they're going to act just like the people that are currently on Brick's posts right now. Which is why I said what I said earlier before I went live. Where is it? Here. On this post here. Brick, who's always had the position of you need to start using the tactics against them and you need to make sure that you do exactly what they did and no more than that. You need to make sure that leftists get fired for their job for not knowing how to shut their mouth when they love to gloat, and making sure that you can turn off the money spigot and start punishing them. When people show up and say things like, typically the right doesn't engage in cancel culture because some perceive moral superiority, but I'm genuinely glad you got that out of your system. You need to understand that this is not about cancel culture. It's consequences. Cancel culture is the life ruination of people for things that they didn't do. Someone literally ruined the lives of Kirk's family, and they will take some time to recover, and his children and his wife will never be the same and never truly heal, but they can grieve, and they can be able to deal with mending the wound, because somebody decided that Charlie Kirk was doing something that he wasn't actually doing. And now they have put into motion information, and they have put into motion actions that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't taken this shot at his life and taken it from him. Consequences is life ruination for people doing things that they are actually doing. The difference is obvious, and the people who you ceded ground to are opportunists, who will use your morals against you. So, for every single individual on TikTok that's acting like these individuals, for every single leftist that's acting like the people that are in my linked post, which, just to go over it and show it directly, I will open the archive again. Question mark? Something extremely retarded is popping up on my screen. In a second. It looks like the entire website of archive.today is being fucking DDoSed right now. Very cute. Very cute. Very, very cute. One moment. Because it was literally working not too long ago, because that's how I was reading it off as I was reading through that statement at the beginning of the broadcast. And now, when I go to my archive.today link, this is what I see on my screen. That is customary that someone is redirecting the website link, because it happens even when I go to archive.ph or archive.today. So somebody is currently trolling to stop people from archiving links right now. I can just go get the direct tweet. I have it saved. The one that is best used to demonstrate this is the one that I took from Merrick. When Merrick says things like this, individuals like Merrick, you have to understand, are like the demons of Farron. If their mouth is open, they are trying to deceive you. They don't use words to communicate like a normal person. They use words as a way to get you to join them on their side, because they use things like sympathy interchangeable with empathy. Because they want you to feel emotions that override your common sense so that they can get you to give them the ability to yes beg. It's like the tactic that Pisco uses whenever he ends up on a podcast hosted by Tim Pool. He constantly yes begs, trying to remain completely indescribable and nebulous so that he can attempt to get you to shut up and agree with him and just listen to what he's saying. And then uses any kind of fucking logic and any kind of argument he can, including an appeal to authority, because I'm a lawyer and you're not, for why you should listen to what he has to say. In the case of Merrick, however, she is exactly a kind of influencer who influences nothing. She is, by all means, an OnlyFans thought. Always has been. Which means this is political opportunism. She sees an opportunity to make fun of the man, and so she takes it. Because she hates him, and what he stands for, and what people who support him or support his ideas stand for, because they're effective. It's the same thing that we saw with the constant pushing for action against people against Ethan Klein. And it's what they've been doing to people like Ethan Klein. It's what people have done in the past to individuals like myself. It's what people will have done to people like Horror, especially if they've been doxxed. I'm seeing F's, but we're not. We're good. We're good, Jack. Or when assaulted, or have had people create nonsensical rumors to try and silence us. It's happened to every single kind of person in history and in the political diatribe, because this has just become normal. It's flickering. I don't know why that is. I'm not seeing an interruption on my end, but I'll take your word for it. This has become normal to the political arena. And in fact, it's not just normal, it is the way that most people make a name for themselves. Do some drama, involve yourself in the zeitgeist, take pot shots at a random person, drum up controversy, and then use that controversy to justify making more controversies. It's why I've never participated directly with things that call for political action, but I have been willing to talk about things. In many ways, that comes to the detriment of my own virality, right? That comes to the detriment of growing my own brand. But we've seen every single time that when people do it, they usually end up doing it incorrectly. So it just so happens to be serendipity, or I guess a very cruel twist of fate, a very bad coincidence, that as we go in at this evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard to have this debate about guns in the hands of transgender individuals and whether or not that is something that should be supported, as it is already been posted by the government, that this happened to Charlie Kirk. Because it's just one more example of the zeitgeist. Because I can promise you right now, more than likely, if they have a soul, there are people who are either abstaining from broadcasting today or broadcasting today. Shut up, Pascal! You're too loud. There are people that are either abstaining from broadcasting today or will be broadcasting and are making money capitalizing on this in politics. I don't think he's even live right now, but maybe I'm wrong. Let's see here. Amethyst Azalea is currently doing a co-stream with Neon, the one who people didn't know I was talking about last time. The one who spells it with an E in his name. Kai Sinat's doing Mafiathon. It looks like you have a bunch of people that are doing co-streaming of something that's called a Next Event featuring Progressive, which appears to have some drag people on the cast doing whatever they're doing. It does not appear that most of the political people are on right now. However, dead front and center, Charlie Cook assassinated.
Chance it's a left. Like, leftists are not stalking Charlie Kirk, right? We are doing other shit. Why did Nick Fuentes hate him? Because he considered him to be not sufficiently pro-white. We talked about it earlier.
And that's the reality of it. Right here. This is it. Right here. This is what's going to happen. And it's going to keep happening. Someone's going to die because of the rhetoric, and they're going to then say, it's not me, it's not us. I'm not responsible. And they're going to add to the antagonism on the pile. It's just another day at the office. Sex Epstein, you can't talk about me, I'm fat. Actually, we need to harass Ethan Klein because it's justified. Pat! Hey guys, listen. The leftists ain't doing this. It's not us. We're busy doing more important shit, like harassing a man about Giardia and harassing his family because we want to try and punish him for speaking about us until he shuts up and he's silent. Bad empanada who? There's a correct way to deal with this. There is an incorrect way to deal with this. I don't have all the answers, but I do have a handful of useful things that are solutions for yourself. If you have people around you right now in your life that are glorifying this death and saying, good, and it should happen more, remove them from your life immediately. If you haven't taken stock of your life and started looking at the people you want in it and the people that you can't have in it, do so now. That's my first piece of advice for you. My second piece of advice for you is, alongside take accountability and stock of what's happening around you, don't necessarily make your circle smaller to isolate yourself, but consider making your circle smaller so that you know who you can rely on. And, if nothing else, do not be plussed to stop communicating, and to stop speaking, and to stop doing actions. Every act you take, no matter how small you think it is, has a force multiplier effect. That's supposed to be the reason why certain people are popular. Never mind fat, ugly retards like this. Excuse me. I clicked off the screen. Ha 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 ha. Never excuse dumb gay retards like Mike from PA, or soulless fucking harlots like Merrick. But do take stock of the content creators that are doing it the correct way, that are friends of your favorites and are doing work with them frequently. So for those of you like Wolgrith, hi, you should support people who are also like me. Not just because Aiden told you that I'm a friend and they told you that you should. Take stock of that person and find out if that's something you actually want to do. And then support any of the things that they do when that thing has a positive outcome that isn't designed to make them look better. When people like Lindsay Ellis say, you should give me money, or rather, you should give this PRIC fund money for the Palestinians, because what? What if it was your kid that was shot? You should say no to her. But you could support something like the still going fundraiser that we have for my friend Alice. Granted, I don't think you have to. I just mention it because it's an example. Because one person wants you to send money to what is going to be terrorists to weaponize so they can continue holding us in a holding pattern. This thing, it's for helping a woman inside of Batavia, Ohio get back on her feet because of the never-ending medical problems that are caused by a system made by leftists and exploited by the rich. Blase, 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 blase. Or, don't support it at all with your money, but simply just give your energy to it. Unironically, like a spirit ball. And help push the thing forward and push the conversation forward with other people that you want to talk to and talk with and talk about. Same thing with people like Memphis Wave. Calling it out for what it is and telling you how the fucking trick is done so you never fall for the fucking sleight of hand again. Any level and act of good that can counteract the unsurmountable wave of evil that you're going to be seeing out of these people is going to be useful to keeping your head solid and remaining on solid ground. It's the same shit I said during the beginning of COVID with the video that then got stricken down because it was too goddamn effective and too smart. You cannot keep tapping the glass and expect people to respect civil rights and laws while you constantly laugh at them exploiting an infinite money glitch for your own interest, and then say, it's not me, it wasn't me, it was a one-armed man. Because the people who are going to come after Charlie Cook to fill the vacuum that you've now created with his absence, they're not going to be nice. The same shit applies to the right as much as the left, mind you. You don't want to remove ineffective dumbass figures like Hassan Piker. You want him to stop being effective, which I guess has happened, but you also want people to not be tricked into believing that he's going to be relevant. But you don't need to shoot him. You don't need to kill him. Not a single person needs to be shot. Let them lose the argument, naturally. Because when you make a martyr out of him, you have inevitably proved them correct in the theater of war and in the halls of thought. Because if they weren't effective, why'd you kill him? If you're not scared of him, why talk? Why not talk? There has to be a justified reason. The same logic was actually trying to be used against me by the dumb fuck who decided to talk shit about Stardust's dad, Morale, and a person from his chat. The answer I gave to them is, I have no interest giving you opportunity. Because if I talk to them, that's an opportunity for them to make money at the same time they've already done it. The best apology for that kind of behavior to stop is changed and learned behavior. They need to have a come to Jesus moment. It shouldn't need to happen with them under bullet fire coming at them at mock Jesus. It doesn't have to be religion. It doesn't even have to be rational logic. They could literally be fucking told by God, who is actually a giant fucking goose, that their job and purpose in life is to lay eggs. But they have to have a come to Jesus moment. They have to realize that it's too much, too fast, too often, too hot. Because it's going to go off not like a powder keg, it's going to go off like a popcorn kernel. Do you know how fast a popcorn kernel pops? It pops at the speed of Mach 5. Fun fact. That's why most methods for making popcorn kernels into popcorn usually deal with pressure valves and heat. There's a very neat one that's made out of steel. See if I can get you a picture of it. Here we are. The traditional Chinese method. For anybody who cares. I promise this is relevant to what I'm saying. You take the device, and rather than the way that most of us have become used to doing it, which is usually inside of a aluminum foil pan that you placed on the stove top, or the bags you placed in the microwave, the original traditional method of making popcorn kernels, very consistent to this contraption, is that you put the kernels inside of a pressure valve, and you hold them under contained pressure. And then after adding your flavorings and your sugars and your salts and your butter, you place that fire on a stove, and you keep spinning the device until you have an even pressure system. Then you have to get a bag, you thread the bag through with the lever, you then hold the lever, you then take an object, and then you open the valve. And the popcorn comes shooting out at Mock Jesus out of the other end of the bag. So that it's a catch device. That's the political landscape. Lots and lots of ideologues put their flavorings into the pot. The great American melting pot of free speech. The bad faith individuals kept calling it free speech and said, who cares if I harass people on the internet? It's just red meat. It's just a meme. It's just a joke. It's just taking out the trash. These aren't people. They're just lol cows. They don't deserve to have rights. They're just Andes. They're just simple fool Andes. Keep hating your life, working class Andy. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Ah! You know, guys, I'm feeling like we maybe have gone a little bit too far about this. You know, it wasn't me that got killed, but next time it could be me. I say a lot of rhetoric and things. This already happened twice within the last 5 years. The majority of examples would be politics. The other example would have been COVID. And they asked for amnesty then too, didn't they? You can only push people so far before they snap. And crackle. And pop. Because that's who they are. What a horrible time for that propaganda to go through my brain. You can only push people so far before they snap. Some people react like animals. Other people react like spree killers. They have lists. They keep track of who you are. They update themselves on your life status. And just like leftists that love canceling people to make sure that they can ruin their opponents so that there are less people for them to have to fight on the field, the people that are waiting in the blades of grass with their guns, they know who you are. They know where you live, because you bragged about it to their face, like many lolcows usually do, and they are more than happy to meet you where you are. They have been waiting. They have been waiting. You think the boogaloo that they're going to do over in the UK is wild, because they are tired of being savaged, not just by people who act like barbarians while refusing to immigrate into their culture and become Englishmen, but also being harassed by their government. We were very close to being the same if leftists had gotten more control of facilities and industries, because they had control of entertainment, they had control of the news, they had control of social media and news, they had control of the levers of moderation over social media and news, they had the ability to control who could become a kingmaker, thus meaning they had the ability to control who was going to become an individual who was of note and notoriety and who was not. And even with trying to exact this over the Wikipedia article detailing the death of Irina and her murder, they tried to stop it from being considered a relevant event. Again, recognize where we are. Recognize how dangerous this is. Do not take it as a joke. It's not a joke. They're not joking. Not just the leftists, but also the rightoids. The people who are making open-mouth claims and are happy to repeat them to whomever they want. So, for dumbass examples of the lolcow that I used to demonstrate that point, before, so I could have this talk with you all today. People like this one, this one, this one. People like this fucking retard, such as Adias, are individuals that you do not want to be involved in anything, because they are more than happy to do it for attention. As the post reads, so as securely established, the left is gleeful, idiots like this are going to keep them losing, they're happy to be the example, and that's why we're going to win. I should have added in the long run. I honestly should have added at the end of that sentence, in the long run. At the same time, they're too stupid, they're incapable or unwilling to realize and recognize and care, and they're the first people who you have to deal with when you're dealing with this. This particular individual was going around retweeting and tweeting at people like a fucking retard, because they're happy to take glory in the fact that somebody died. Every time you respond to them, they're going to respond to you like all trolls respond to people. Lol, you're mad. You spoke. You said things. That means you're upset. That means you're angry. Lol, 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 lol. I'm going to check that in a second. They will never stop because they feel emboldened to do this, because that's what their landscape has become. So you have to call out the truth for what it is. And you have to accept that this is what's going to happen. But at the end of the day, it's not your job to decide who gets to speak and who doesn't. Technically, that's everybody's job. No one individual has the ability and power to do it. Period. These individuals, they're the first kind of person that has to be removed from society, because they're not normal people. They are individuals who specifically specify in making jokes out of everything. And I don't mean jokes out of everything to bring levity. I mean everything is a joke to them because they don't care about anyone, because they're perpetual nihilists. They're the kind of person that when people make the joke, which is not a joke, but is a addressal of common truth, that the way to deal and break with a person's nihilism is to threaten violence on them, that is usually meant to be a joke, made at the expense of smiling friends. But that's actually how you break people out of the delusion. Because you don't attack people for having opinions. You can do everything you want to criticize a person's opinion, but you cannot attack them for thoughts that are in their head. If you attack them for thoughts and not actions, then you open the ground to allowing yourself to be the next target that gets picked off. Because if thought crimes are what we start persecuting people for, then not only is it not going to change, it's going to change for the greatest kind of worst capacity that you could ever fucking hope for. And then, Lindsay Ellis, it will be your child! Because if nobody cares who's a non-combatant and who's a combatant, if you're willing to do this to a person who sits in a chair like this and yaps at the screen, then it means it's you, it's me, it's that guy, him, her, him, and it's never going to stop until the last person's standing on top of the hill. No enemies, no rivals, no family, no legacy. Just a kingdom of ash that turns to dust in their mouth. I don't want to live like that. I like my woman in cream pies too much. So I would like to live. That's called a third order magnitude. All right. I'm done yapping. those of you who were there last night with us on The Broken Ground, hello, Shabbat, Shalom, I'm Carl. There's your introduction. For everybody else, what's good? What's poppin'? Now let me go read that super chat you sent. $5 from Mexico Crusher. Reject civil war, embrace national divorce. Those who seek violence will regret their decisions. True. As I mentioned, both in the broadcast, the last few broadcasts, as well on social media, I will be participating in WIT TV's debate panel tonight on the side of the side that objects. Honestly, I wish I could have had a better place to make a better debut, but these are the breaks. So, we're going to make the most of it, which means we're not going to make an ass of ourselves. I've done debate prep and blah, blah, blah. We have our written out statements. We just now have to get to the event, see how it goes, and then tomorrow is another day. Keep your head high and keep your hearts pounding. Let's get some music in here. Let's get some levity. Doing things small? Nah, not this timeline. True. Still a little bit nervous of all those Russian drones flying, and other than that, I came back to Better Girls Survive. Still holds up with co-op tower defense mode. Based. I honestly don't know what to make of what's going to happen, because there are actually some people that did comment on the fact that as Article 4 was being put into place, there was the attack that then happened on Charlie Cook's life. So it's like, what a wild time to be in, guys, huh? Don't you love living through political events every single day of your life? Technically, that always happens. But you don't want to be in events like this. Because now, because of September, now we don't just have 9/11 to deal with, now we have 9/10! Ain't that about a bitch? But for everybody else who's not affected, it's just another day. I don't like viewing it as just another day. I don't view every single day that I potentially have on this planet as just another day. But it is what it is, right? It is what it is. The only thing I can tell you all is the same thing I would tell myself. What? Wait, what happened on 9/10? Chat, he doesn't know. Chat, he doesn't know. He doesn't know, chat. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. We will have to wait for a second for Casbah to join us after the ads. I have so many tabs open. This is the puzzle guide. I should just save this as a picture. And this is the D2 profiler to find things. Yeah. It has a mission guide system. I don't need this open though. Welcome back, Casbah. A man was murdered yesterday. That's what happened yesterday. Casbah was somehow capable of doing what none of us were able to do, and that was staying away from social media that he did not learn until exactly that last second before I just told him. Yeah, Aiden and Bill are great. I don't usually get to talk to them very often because when it's 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock here, it's 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning for them. If only though. Honestly, the thing that worries me most about doing public anything is that because I'm friends with who I'm friends with, I'm going to be accused of being a fucking shill no matter what I do. So I might as well embrace the memes. That's why at the end there, that one thing that Aiden said, as she made her statement about Wick and Dev, I had to specifically say the thing that I said. I shouldn't have to make statements like that, but I have to. Because ironically enough, people I no longer associate with because of their recent behavior, it's been passed along to me on the grapevine that they are yet again back at it once more. I mean, they would hit a man with glasses. Of course they would hit a man with glasses, Casbah. They hit a man with man titties. They hit a man with what they accused me of gynecomastia, when actually, I just have muscles in bad places. And also, I don't work enough on my top set. If I had the ability to go to a gym more often, or if I rather should ask Star's roommate to borrow his weights, or I buy a set of weights of my own, I could probably change this in 3 months. But alas, I have to buy food to survive first. Then again, the bar is always there. Speaking of, simply because there are people here who have not already learned about it. For those that do not know, as is the point of my pinned tweet, we are doing a sub goal and sub reward drive. Exclamation point SAS drive. We're currently sitting at 1 sub and $140 something, not counting for what was just donated today. We're not that far away from getting to the next goal, which is the in-house community only giveaway for our Discord members that are inside of my community. Hopefully, all that money that gets raised gets used to put things back. Yes, I know I can use other things as weights. The problem is that I don't have anything in the house that's heavy enough that I can properly pick up safely. We had to make sure that we could be able to wheel-proof chair the house. I could probably make an object if I put my mind to it. I just haven't, because it didn't come up in my mind. And it's also not that expensive to get some. I just have to sit down the next time that I have a YouTube payment, put money aside, get some, and then start doing them as exercises on the side. That's very nice of you, Casball. I may take you up on that. As such, it is currently 2:46, which means I have 3 hours and 30 minutes to enjoy to myself. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I know. Let's play an interactive Twitch meme game. Yes, let's play an interactive Twitch meme game. Let's have some levity. I don't usually get to play these games, other than to myself. Something the whole family can enjoy. Yes, I have a YouTube. You're currently talking to a combination of 4 chat rooms at once, Casbah. Twitch, YouTube, kick, and X. Here we are. Welcome to Billionaire. Unfortunately, the interactions on this only go towards Twitch, so that's an annoying thing that I have to just deal with. Now, we can play the game. No, this is the way that the Billionaire designers designed it. But it should connect, as it said right there in the chat room, that it's connected to Billionaire. So everybody who is here should be able to interact with it in the same way, I think. First. Last night, there was a new update that I took part in, and I did the sewer. There is not a random choice. So I guess we can either start with the customs or with the chosens. Probably just start with the basic. Ouch. You think you're missing something here on Twitch? What's on Unisyn? Tell me, Casbah, what's on Unisyn? Also, you're not wrong about that, Wolgreath. It said it connected, but no idea what to do. It begins working once I start the game. I'm trying to decide how I wanted to start with what boons. But I believe we will just go with random trigger and a random boon. Okay. You start the board with 3 tributes each at each stage. They have negatives that will affect the board for the rest of the game. And then we start with our total. 500 money and 7 drops. And now, here starts the voting. I see Horace going back to work. She has told us to have fun, chat, so fun we shall have. It actually shows in game how many of you are voting for what. In the meanwhile, I'll look over at Twitter every now and again and see what's happening on the platform. No votes? Okay, we continue. Animal trigger, gain a trigger gem draft. When a ball destroys an attackable trigger, gain 3 random carryables. When a trigger is destroyed or removed, every other trigger that shares that trait will gain +1 mult. Wow. And then another. $10 seconds, or let's do 15 seconds. 15 seconds, make your calls. All in the background. I will do my thing. All in there. And this is on podcasts. This is right. Okay. Ouch. Now, is there anybody who is looking into or is looking forward to my debate, other than just me in my audience? Anyone at all? Let's see here. This is looking for trigger crabs, right? Destroyed or removed every trigger that declares the trait. Meanwhile, this is common chains and spawners. Whenever a trigger is destroyed, gain point molt. I think we go here. Next vote, 15 seconds. No, you don't have to have, you shouldn't have to have the game beforehand. All you have to do is type vote 0, vote 0, vote 1, and vote 2 in order to have votes on the screen. That's how it works. So when you make a vote, your vote shows up on top of the trigger in the game. Having dinner with family when the debate goes up. Saw you live and I wanted to peep the horrors. Oh, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think it's going to be horrors, but I do think it's going to be very interesting. Because we've only spoken to the opponents on the side of the affirmative by being involved with it. See, there it goes. By being involved with them only through the chat that Wick has us in. So we've all agreed that we want to stay away from the negative intentions of the conversations. But we understand that it's going to be there. It was me who approached Wick and said specifically that we should have a statement said. Because originally, since I was the only person on that side for the opposing, until I asked Aiden to be my +1. Why is my camera askew? Before I asked Aiden to be my +1, it was the intentions of the board to effectively be involved with the discussions itself, as in the current broadcast. Oh, okay. It was my intentions to have us have a statement, because if we didn't say something about Charlie's death, we would be cucking ourselves out. And that's ceding ground to the enemy. Honestly, the only plan that I have is to not get made into a lolcow politically. Because my position is very simple. It's the normal position any person would have. It'd be the Schmidian exception. The same purpose that can be had with a debate about if trans people should own guns is the same thing with any group owning guns. There are already on the books laws and prescriptions that are made that a person needs to be of sound mind and body to operate and own a firearm. If they are under the standard of mental health, they cannot just be allowed to own it just because they should. Otherwise, you hate trans people. Because it's the same thing if you were to place the argument and to say, we're doing this because you hate black people, you hate white people, you hate Indians, you hate Native Americans. It's the Smithian exception. Other than that, those basic concepts also have 4 different requirements underneath them that are necessary for the purposes of a person's knowledge to know whether or not that person is capable of being considered of sound mind and sound body. From there, whatever happens after that opening statement from us is going to be the setting of the entire discussion. My hope is that our ability is the only vote. I feel like the anchor would earn more for now. Yeah, let's go the anchor. Another vote. It is to the quality of the intentions of who's involved. It's off center. Can I resize this? full screen. Apparently on my side now. But it is to my intentions that I wanted to frame my argument as I explained it to Wick. That I don't want any person to attempt to argue that I must hate trans people because of the particular argumentation that I'm making. That in fact, I want the argument to be very clear that I do not want people to assume that I make my opinions specifically because the people in question claim I must hate trans people for even wanting to portray it. Hold on. Every time that there's a vote draft, it comes up and gives the chance to vote. So now it'll give you another one for a vote draft. I want it to come up in such a way where it gives people the ability to understand that the position of those that are on the side of the opposition is not even the position of crazed trans haters, right? That's the thing that I wanted to make easy and clear for everybody to understand by the way that I've phrased the argument to them. So that way, it makes it much easier to ingest what's going to be discussed, and at the same time to make it clear that it's not just going to be clickbait. You know? I didn't want my first presentation to be clickbait. Does that work? Was Twitch giving you limitations because it tried to say that you were spamming? Let me see if I can fix that. Because it shouldn't be doing that. It's okay, Gazball, you'll make it. Should actually also work if you're here on YouTube as well. Let's test that. Does it work from this side? I guess not. It just announces it. Oh well. So it's only the Twitch side feature that makes it work. Boys, silly. Anyways, I wanted that to be the clear way that we were going to go about the debate. Because I was going to make that clear from the beginning. And I brought Aiden along as my +1. Because that's a person who I know I could trust in view of making sure that the point would be communicated well for everybody involved. Honestly, boss, I know Wick TV from his occasional brush-ups against your spirit of the TTRPG community, and the opinion of those interactions is low. What interactions are those, Wolgreath? This is news to me. Well, I found out that you have a YouTube channel, so that's a plus. Is it not there on my panels? It should definitely express there on my panels. Let's see here. I don't have a lot of charges here. I'm going to use a reroll. Does it send a new announcement when I reroll? Yes, it does. It's down in the info, but I never scroll down. I normally there with peoples that I know. I don't know, man. Ever since Twitch has become what it's become, I assume everything breaks and is broken unless somebody tells me otherwise. Because honestly, if the things like Wick TV's normal dramas, I'm aware of those things. I'm aware of the dust-ups that happen from people who are there in his chat room to talk about stuff, because that's what his show's designed to do. But Wick's opinions inside of the tabletop RPG audience, that's news to me. I want to have the tea. I like Earl Grey. Lucky clovers, earn the money, carry the clover, improves chance test by 25, and carrying a clover. I guess here? Wick has some good opinions, just phrased poorly, as far as TTRPG stuff. Can you give me some examples? Or is this a case of something that you heard for the grapevine? So I'd have to go looking for the original place that it came from. Main cart. The ball causes a holder deposit, cause an extra deposit. Mini cart, deposits. Maybe here. I'm waiting with bated breath, Walgreath. Telling me the tea. I demand it. I demand it. How is that a minecart? The minecart has an ability, and what it does is that you ride the minecart, and it makes a holder deposit into an extra depositor. So if there was a depositor underneath the minecart on any of the triggers, it will actually cause another deposit in the trigger. It's combo effects, basically. It's basically a form of Plinko and Pachinko. This one became all the rage after Peglin became popular. Firecracker. Once per drop the fireball cracker. Launch to the top of the screen, rain fireballs. I guess here? Survive off the winnings of that one drop. Thing that I can immediately think of is a stream that he did with several other DMs. Oh, so he's also a dungeon master. What is their job at the table? Most modern DMs think their job is to ensure that everyone's having fun. Oh no. What were these DMs? What was the opinions of these DMs at the table? Like, were these leftist type DMs like GM Satine and the DM of Critical Role, the DM of Dimension 20 and shit like that? He's like, the job is to ensure everyone's having fun. Because of the opinion that I agree with, that everyone having fun on the tables, DM and judges 4 hours to enforce the rules and consequences of actions. Well, I don't necessarily have to. It's the suggestion of what best would work. Because technically, anybody who could vote could just vote for the thing that has the least amount of synergies. Because technically, it's a audience of 1 on Twitch that's actively voting. As to hosts who DM, let's see here. We can make synergies because of the use of egg. Because every time an egg ball is created, it gets destroyed, which adds to the spawner limitations of the trash can. And then we have the bomb goblin, which does the same thing, is infinite, and creates a mix of fire and rock balls in all directions, which will help ignite the candle that you voted for, and make use of the firecracker that you voted for. As to who they were in R, you have no clue? Okay. Now that you told me that, my opinion is that as a DM myself, the job of the DM is not to, quote, enforce that they're having fun, but to enforce the rules of the table and to fairly create challenges that meet the interest of the players at the table within reason. The job of a DM, whenever you're playing any session of any video game, is to create controlled chaos. It is not possible to control and railroad a session into being a certain thing. Because as the game exists, every person who plays any type of tabletop is going to preclude and is going to physically force actions and behavior based on what they particularly want. So, when you create an environment and you have players that are murder hobos, they're going to try to murder and they're going to try to rules lawyer and they're going to try to justify any of the plays that they make that would work on a lesser DM who is less confident and unwilling to deal with the unruly players, to rein them in and understand that if they want to play an evil alignment party that just murders everybody as their first response to everything, that the skilled DM, rather than doing what a lesser DM would do, not lesser because they are bad, but lesser because they are inexperienced with how to create correct reactions to this kind of influence, a skilled DM will look at the situation of the player and they will design a situation that is tailored to their reaction. Your comment shouldn't have gotten deleted. Because ultimately, the DM is playing every single character in the environment. Ooh, first additional draft. The DM is playing every single neutral and hostile NPC in the environment and is reacting based on the information that the DM already has prior programmed into the instance that the player otherwise would be playing through as a live interaction of a CRPG. In the context of a CRPG, these are meant to be reactions that are technically done as a plan towards the textbook module. But the added caveat of being a living DM is that as well as being the physical human calculator that calculates and stacks the consequences of the dice roll, you are able to do something that a PC cannot do unless it is programmed by a programmable ChatGPT AI, which is to create innovation. So, let's say you have a party of 5 murder hobos that have decided to rules lawyer, twink, and specifically metagame their characters to counter any particular object you could throw at them. The natural DM reaction to that: silvery barbs! As usually most players' reaction to that is to also silvery barbs. Doesn't matter if it's the legendary reaction, doesn't matter if it is a instantaneous wake up, doesn't matter if it is a non-resolvable interrupt or disable or disintegration effect that then stops all forms of revival. The DM, in response to people's actions, should have a reaction to how the players play, and should create the effect that would be natural in a normal writing environment, because it is effectively creative writing in a group. Because the DM serves as 3 things. The DM serves as 1, the living recorder of the events of the world and the interaction the players have inside of it. 2, the interpreter, and thus the communicator, of the actions and reactions that players are having. And 3, the physical brain that is operating the NPCs of the encounter, as well as the 0th job, which is to be the person who is making the invisible dice rolls that make the machine of the tabletop CRPG happen in front of the players. The human element gets injected whenever somebody tries to rules lawyer and thus metagame their way into bricking what would otherwise be a perfectly oiled machine. Because as we should all know, CRPGs are very buggy. Hell, how many bugs exist inside of Baldur's Gate that they had to patch and fix and or made into features because of them being bugs? How exploitable is the AI and the logic of the AI? How many fail-safes did they have to program into the game just to make sure players didn't accidentally kill themselves, losing the nether stones and shit like that? And the CRPGs that came before them, and the ones before those, and the ones before those, and the ones before those. Before I leave to go fight Spider-Man, is the debate going to be old school, high school debate class, or the least unhinged blood sports? I don't know, Exocrusher. It could be anywhere between the margins that normal debates are had. Basically. It could be a bunch of shit, bro. The first time a trigger is removed each turn, gain 3 rerolls. Versus when you remove a trigger, drop an extra ball next drop. Versus when you remove a trigger, each of its adjacent triggers gain 1.1 molt. I think trowel can work here.
Wow.
Bum 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 bum. So, if you have a party of evil murder hobos, and they just go about from place to place, constantly stealing, murdering, antagonizing, threatening, and trying to manipulate the geopolitical status of the realm that you have placed your module and or your environment in, whether you're playing off of a module inside the settings of any of the settings that have ever been created, such as Forgotten Realms, or a custom book, what should happen is you should have a divine response comparative to the level of action that is happening on the party's levity. So if you have a bunch of vagabonds that are just actively acting like highwaymen, you should have a standing army that starts getting formulated 5 towns over that gets launched to come root the threat. If you have level 20 vagabonds that have basically become archliches that are stomping across the fucking lands, making people bend to their will, AO should be sending minor gods and champions of men to slay them. Because if you're murdering everybody, there should be a reaction like you're acting like a bunch of murderers. Period. The same thing that is if your players are playing as heroes of men and adventurers of fortune that are recognized, they should start getting noticed to the point where the big bad evil could just come up to them randomly on the road, disguised, and try to poison them, knowing that he can't fight them or she can't fight them in direct combat, and instead take them out through alteration means, and actually be forced to use their talents and their traits and their skills, not just for combat skills, but also for conversations, to prove that they are all well-rounded. And do so while still having the humor, while still having the memes, while still having the jokes that make most broadcasts possible. One of the best D&D tables that I think I've seen, with the exception of Something Witty Entertainment, mainly one that I prefer just because of the voice actors that I know that are on it, but in relevance to the ones that people all know about, is Legends of Irantara, I think it's called, The one with the female DM that has a table full of almost all men and like maybe 2 women that are all over TikTok all of the time. With TikToks that go viral of the end jokes and the humor, especially considering how many people at the table just specialize in the level of silliness that should be possible in tabletop RPG. That has always been the big draw, that has effectively brought people that believe that actually it's an extension of Broadway theater and care more about the theatrics and theatric bonuses than they actually care about the actual content they're doing at the table and how they interact with it. Of course, that's just an example that you can start with. You can go any bigger, you can go smaller, you can do whatever you feel is right. Hell, I have an idea for a table full of ideas built off of Darkest Dungeon, where I want people to design player characters that they feel are going to be perfectly created to the setting, just so that I can kill those characters in the open tutorial and have them roll completely random characters from stat sheets already pre-prepared, just like the game makes, so that they have to naturally learn how to play characters in the environment, because they're not playing player characters, they're playing the tacticians that are controlling the player characters, and they have various sheets of skills that they can design for, because they have to fill for the dungeons just like you would in Darkest Dungeon and Darkest Dungeon 2. Ideas like this are supposed to encourage people to become better, not worse, at video games. The way that most people tend to treat it, however, they treat it like if they don't get the chance to do murder hobo stuff, they have been robbed. Which I find inherently bullshit. In my own opinion. I find it to be inherent bullshit the way that people choose to treat TTRPG. Truthfully, it is something that we did to ourselves. We allowed the argument to be seated to the left. The left then took over TTRPG and made it fucking lame and gay. But in private groups, you can always find the entertainment that comes from things like Legend of Aritaria. Because realistically, there's an unspoken bond, and there is an unspoken rule between people that vote at the table. The unspoken bond and the unspoken rule is that I respect your intelligence as a player, and you respect my calls as a DM. If I'm going to make it fair to you, and you want to take a giant risk, like, yeah, I'm gonna play a bard character. I'm gonna try to seduce every single character. Are you willing to pay interspecies child support? Are you ready for the consequences that come from fucking every single living thing that breathes and moves? Are you willing to possibly see your dick rot off because you're trying to breed a fucking slime as much as you're trying to fuck a dragon? These things matter. More often than not, when they come up in conversation, I often see people that are not really willing to make that argument. They're not really ready to come to the table and really accept that entire concept and philosophy. And it's because they decided, actually, I want what I want, and I want to make the DM do what I want. So you can't take that away from me. You're ruining my feelings. Because the thing about it that I find to be the most interesting concept of this, because it's itself a small social game that is a scale model of behavioral patterns and behavioral group dynamics. The Dungeon Master is a player too. Like, the Dungeon Master might not be playing a player NPC in the party, or constantly having to portray the behaviors and actions of a particular designed player character to be their proxy in the world as a guide for your character, who may or may not be an implicated player to be a red herring to throw you off, because they could unironically design the big bad that then, because of the actions of the party, it's like, oh, you guys are evil? I didn't think that you were evil. Why did you become evil? Now I have to fight you. And then you create a campaign where now they're the big bad evil guys and the entire world is trying to stop them. But the player character that the DM represents is that the DM represents your friend that's trying to have a fun, exciting engagement with you. And the way that I see most people interact with tabletop RPG, in the concept of the crossover between normal video games, where everything is single player, so only their choice matters, and the group setting of TTRPG, especially IRL TTRPG, especially if they're a part of adventure guilds and adventure leagues, where they go and meet up at actual game spots and tables and conventions, and not just for one-shots, especially if they're doing it online. The DM is a player, and the DM has the ability to say, it is not fun not being able to do anything. The same way that a person could complain about a normal game is the same problem that they have with feeling like they're not able to do anything in a normal game. So, I'll give you a perfect example, despite the fact that many people haven't caught on to it being the case. Helldivers 2. Helldivers, in its first iteration, was a top-down isometric twin shooter. The Galactic War Table didn't exist and wasn't a factor. What happened in the war was a result of the player character's choices in a game session. Now, Helldivers 2 is a living, breathing narrative of active decisions that are made by the player base. There have been a total of now 5 to 6 expansions. I say 6 because you have to count the 60-day period of Buff Divers when Johans moved from the CEO to the CCO position as an update itself that was meant to reinvigorate interest in the game, to bring people to it. Because you had the global mobilization launch of Helldivers 2, which marked the beginning of the Second Galactic War. Then you had Buff Divers, which happened in the middle of the escalation, or the beginning and then the through line of the Escalation of Freedom. Then you had Escalation of Freedom proper. Then you had Omens of Tyranny. Then you had the Battle for Democracy in the heart of democracy as the kickoff of that event, which then included the invasion of Super Earth by the Illuminate Great Host, as well as the Great Reclamation that happened over the time of the Escalation of Freedom. And now we are into the Unjust, where we are beginning to get the tools and the autonomy to begin going into the gloom that was created from overarching world events, such as the catastrophic failure of the Terminated control system. Everything that happens in the war, all the lore, all the relevant shit, all of that stuff is directly at the behest of the designers. It is made for the designers to try to create an opportunity for everybody to understand consistently what it is that they're trying to make. The fact of the matter that players feel like they don't have a lot of chances and they don't have a lot of opportunities and they're not given a lot of ability to dominate the game is because they're not used to being put in a position where they actually are at the mercy of random chance and decision. There's always been a chance at a table where a person can take a total party kill, because the total party kill is a consequence. Also, nice to hear that. We'll see you when you come back from your smoke break. The idea that a person on level 1 gets total party killed because they made a horrible gameplay decision that is directly going to affect their ability to live, that is the consequence that comes with making bold decisions with very small oversight and fallbacks. But that is in where clips from things like Critical Role and The Legend of Armentaria come from. It is the fact that you are doing the silly-billy thing that causes you the fun. Because if there are no risks, there are no stakes. But at the same time, you don't feel like you should be immediately killed by a person casting something like Magic Missile at a character. Because if the DM is just targeting a player and sandbagging that player, that's one thing, right? But if the player character that is the DM is actually extrapolating the logic that is, you don't think about your party's positioning, the players have to then take part in the roleplay and actually put themselves in the position and not just say, no, I top decked my skill, that means I win. I spam Legendary Smite all the time. You're supposed to just fall over and die now. Because it's like kids. It's like kids playing in the park with sticks, playing cops and robbers, and heroes and villains, and swords and shields. Expecting people to behave in such a way where a table full of... To be fair, I would call most rules lawyers and twinkers cheaters, because most of them usually are cheating. But it's more about the interpretation of how they want to use the rule, and then the house rules that are made in place to say, listen, your character is a bit too broken, so we're going to nerf them slightly. And in exchange for nerfing you, I'm going to give you a new toy. Because that's what it comes down to. It comes down to consideration. It comes down to the consideration that the players are making towards the player character that is the DM as collective players in the campaign to make the actual campaign work. They have to be willing to show up. They have to be willing to engage. The DM has to be willing to accept that, hey, my perfectly laid plan, they just directly avoided it. And then they think on the fly. Because every time we can always have a great plan. And then it can always go south when they somehow did not pick up the trigger because they are a party of combat, not a party of exploration and information. One person might be dedicated to taking notes, but what happens when that one person can't show up to the meeting or can't show up to the table that week or that day because of some stuff that's happening in their life? Or what if a person is getting ostracized at the table over something that is not their fault? Or a group of people are being harassed at the table by another player, or even the DM, for something that is a choice made by that person. Whether it be the DM bullying a player, or a player trying to harass the DM and using the social contract and their nicety the same way I described earlier. To get something over on them, and to constantly try to make them call the bluff. If people want to be a part of something, they have to be willing to accept that they cannot bullshit their way through. That they cannot just decide, actually, you're not allowed to do that because I decided. Because that's the biggest problem at the end of the day. It's a very big problem if a person is not allowed the choice to just choose differently. Because they have been told they're not allowed to choose differently. That's at least my opinion. That's how I feel about it. Unfortunately, there are many people that don't like that opinion. Because they perceive it to be bad. Silly, even. Personally, I find that to be some bullshit, but that's the opinion some people have. At least in my opinion when it comes to tabletop games. Because I've always felt it's crazy to expect people to want to be a part of something, and then you disallow them from truly being a part of the thing that they want to be a part of. At least in my opinion. House rules is just case law for silly elf games. Belonging to something means that you have to care about it. What's my system of choice? For playing as a DM, or playing as a character. Because the way that I play as a DM is different from the way that I play as a character. Because the system I put in place is whatever I think is the best system to use in the situation that it's being called for and for the role that I'm doing. Boom, 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 wow, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Never this trigger starts a bomb. 100% chance to spawn an extra bomb. Either or both. As a DM, my system is meant to be played as passive or reactive. If a player makes a decision where I can tell they are trying to get one by me, I'm going to increase the punishment that I give to the person for trying to sneak one by me in scale of how aggressive I believe the deception was. So, if a person who's new to my table tries to go about the way of getting one by me, so that they can effectively, I don't know, try to get me to give them a chance to do something, I would want to treat it, and the person in question, to what I believe is a appropriate reaction in terms of the outcome that they are trying to do. So, let's say game system of choice to play in. Ah! Much better answer. I usually use the game system that is suggested to the game. Usually. I can use D20. I could use GURPS. I could use anything that I could find that would fit the setting or fits the campaign that I want it to be ran for. However, I feel like the question of game system also prioritizes like my decision making and my discernment for my choices as a player or DM. Because as a player, you always want to try to get away with everything, and as a DM, you're supposed to be trying to stop everything, right? Blah, 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 blah. No. As a DM, if a person is trying to do something like the way that a rule is, the way that a spell is ruled in an edition that is very hard to get a book or a PNG copy of, or a PDF of, if they try to come up with a spell that they tell me is supposed to be only 2nd level, but it sounds and operates like a 7th level version of that spell, welcome. I will try to see what they do with that action. If they try to use it like a, how did you call it, everything? How did you call it? If they try to use it as an everything gun, in defense of and breaking my quote in my unbreakable shield, I have to eventually address that person. But the way that I'm going to do it is I'm not going to say, okay, that's bullshit. You need to stop using that thing the way that you're using it. I'm instead going to address it the way that I feel like I should address it. So rather than addressing it as, alright, you can't do that. That thing you're using is bullshit. I would instead address it like, you want to be able to have this super powerful spell, but you have to be willing to accept that you cannot get away with it. So, if they were to use a version of Silvery Barbs, for example, that it counters every single situation that Silvery Barbs could be put into, and it's specifically written to overcome specific resistances that if I didn't look into the rules book, I wouldn't discover it shouldn't work against, I will probably make a table desire where I will call them on their bluff, and I'll let them use the table-ruled version of the spell. Whereas, as a situation where it's like, say, a magic system of choice or decision, I will allow for what people in the industry have tried to call a theatrical bonus, right? So a theatrical bonus being they want to have a chance to do a highly specific maneuver and attack, like a team attack. Like a Ranger-esque team finisher victory rush. The most common ones that I've seen in games, especially with the people that I've played with on tables, has been rider finishers, like rider kicks. A person is considered somehow as a paladin. They have a suit of armor that functions as the paladin system. And those they want to rule, their divine smite is actually a rider kick. And they want to do a dynamic bonus where the sorcerer and the wizard combine buff spells to enable them to pull off a Kamen Rider blade type finisher, like spinning dance. If they wish to, then I would design a system where it is a hermetic magic system. They have to have invocations, they have to have summons, they have to have seances, they have to have calls, and they have to roll percentages. If they hit the percentages, and they hit the rolls, and the enemy doesn't make their AC save, then behind the table, I could roll something like a performance bonus as a form of the theatrics behind what they're doing. Whether it involves any amount of voice acting from the people at the table is unimportant. They want to do something. They want to do something interesting and cool, so I will let them roll for it. If they can meet and beat my challenge, then I let it happen. And whatever happens as a reaction, the enemy gets to do the same thing. I remember there was a time where I used an example where a group of people basically wanted to run a campaign like they were Power Rangers. And so I made them fight a example that would be their comparisons as Psycho Rangers in the form of my interpretation of the Ginyu Force. It was funny as hell. And it worked beautifully. As a player, I try, like all people, to do as much as possible to be in theme with what I design a character for. For the last D&D campaign that I played on camera as an influencer with my friends, I created a deathless ghost who had split personalities because they were literal controlling souls responsible for decision making for the Horde and Legion. One of them was a deathless ghost. The other one was a consummate murderer who was a former cultist of Baal who was doing the Geguru to have to fight to scrounge for food and money so that he could be left alive long enough to survive to the next Geguru on behalf of Baal and his sick entertainment. So one of them was basically a murder hobo who didn't murder because he wanted to be a murder hobo. He was murdering because he needed to eat to live. And the other one was the eventual person who killed him and then trapped his soul inside of the matrix of all of the other souls. He was responsible for either killing himself with other people he was possessing as a deathless ghost, ghost riding inside of other people, or was responsible for caring for the souls of, as he was a pillar of his community, who was responsible for basically connecting the living dead of entire family trees to each other, so they could be able to talk to their grandma whenever they wanted to, whenever they missed her, or whenever they wanted her advice, or whenever they wanted to have a refresher on exactly what the secret was that made the peach cobbler bussin'. Where that character eventually got to the point where I had to exit the campaign, was that they had been together for so long that they eventually were given an offer by Bale directly to get a Sayax that allowed them the ability to reincarnate, upon which both of them separated. One became basically a human ranger because he became so good at killing that as an assassin his preferred target was humans, and the other one was basically a reincarnated godkin who was now on the mission to rebuild the village that he was separated from, because long earlier in the campaign they had been separated from their ghostly horde that got sucked into a spirit trap. And the two of them, without other people to take care of, now had competing personality differences that made the other one want to supplant the other one. And yet they parted ways amicably as heroes, and separately as respectable rivals. Because as much as they couldn't stand each other in character, they were still basically one and the same person. Ideas like that require understanding what it is you want to do. Some people, they like to play the table like they're playing a player character. Some people, they like to play the scenario like it is truly a game. Ooh. In general, the way that a player could go about caring and feeling about the material only really matters for as much as a person's willing to really give for the scenario being described in general, right? If you're the player character in that scenario, you're gonna want to take as many opportunities as you can to do the special thing you design your character to do. And if you're a person who wants to play fairly but still get away with some bullshit every now and again, maybe you try something that the DM will be like, okay, hold on, alright, because you just want to see if they can step up to the challenge. And as a DM, you probably want the same for your players. The inevitable cycle of one side trying to get a leg up on the other creates an interaction that should be respected, not denigrated, from a person involved in the content. That's something that people have to take part in and understand is a part of the dynamic. If people don't respect that dynamic, then the dynamic doesn't work. It doesn't matter what you say or who you say it to. You have to respect the dynamic or the dynamic doesn't work. If they don't respect the dynamic, you just have to accept that they're not really capable of taking part in what it is they're taking part in. That should be one of the first things a person accepts as a part of the material in question. It happens to be unfortunate in some people's cases that they believe that they have to be permanently antagonistic content creators and to other people, but that's part of the fun. So, to use the game in front of us as a current example, you could play this game, if you're playing by yourself, of course, as the way that you would play a normal game like this. You make your choices, you make your decisions, you decide how you're gonna do a thing, and then you just go off of what creates the biggest synergy. The way that we're currently technically engaged in it, even though I turned it on, and the only people who can use it are the people who are going to be watching specifically from Twitch. If I turn on the voting system, people then have the ability to vote on what I should take, or what they think I should use, or to vote on what they think would be the funniest thing I could do. The type of streamer games that are designed like this are usually things like Peak and Repo and Lethal Company and Content Warning. But engaging with the decisions and choices that people make, where you don't just say, nah, your choice is dog shit, I'm gonna go with my idea. But you instead try to work around it, and it's like, okay, we can take this part works. This part doesn't work so much, but we can bank it and make it speculative and hold it in the future. This works perfectly, this works perfectly, this works perfectly, now we got some synergy going. That kind of interaction is something that should be encouraged, because that's how all gameplay works. It works not just off adaptation, but off of involvement. And the fact that there are people that don't like being involved in the involvement, and feel that they can be completely disconnected from the involvement, is a very deeply concerning thing that I find very strange and very weird and very interesting. I find it very strange, very weird, and very interesting. Because that's not a new thing that's happened. At all. Like, it's not a new thing that's happened. Oh, my butt.
Wow.
That's unfortunate positioning. Ouch, my back. You wish to take part, but the unaffected by any involvement? Yeah. And as you say, the more you put in, the more you immerse yourself in the game, and the more that you get out of it. Unfortunately, as is the case with the example I provided earlier, which is Helldivers 2, you can be able to go, if you haven't been banned from the Discord, and you can see inside of the official Helldivers 2 Discord, hosted by Arrowhead, that they understand this as a factor that people are going to complain, and they're going to maul, and they're going to whine about the state of the board. But ultimately, they're going to keep playing the game. So on that level of involvement, they understand that people are going to be hypocritical about this. And as players playing that game, if you are actively playing Helldivers, it is very irritating to be a person who hears and sees people nonsensically just make bold, brash statements, aptitude and provided of nothing, to say, nuh-uh, this weapon's dog shit, it's bad, it's meta, it's not meta, bro, it's not meta. And then you take a clip of you dominating with it inside the sandbox that is the game's environment. And then for them to still get mad, not only because you gave them new information that they can use in the game, but you've also then deconstructed this viewpoint that the thing that they said must be true is actually not true and is false. It's a very interesting interaction that keeps happening, because it feels like, right? If you look at Helldivers 2, Helldivers 2 is designed, Wolgren, as the kind of game that you look at it, Wolgreath, if you look at it, it's designed like a game that you expect to be a pick up and put down 4-man co-op extraction shooter. But it's not. As the famous quote that I have, that I keep referencing anytime it gets mentioned in the official Discord, it is actually a live service tabletop RPG that is disguised as an action movie that is disguised as a extraction FPS. we're all participating in a war table that inside of milsims such as Arna, or Rust, or more specifically and more topically when it comes to planetary domination, PlanetSide and PlanetSide 2, it is a state of a war game where we are soldiers that participate in and are a part of a government that actively lies to us, the Helldiver, for profit on a need-to-know basis. E10 is derived from Terminate Guts. E11, which we just discovered inside of the Gloom, is derived from Terminate Hive Worlds that is now properly capable of being synthesized into dark fluid. The same dark fluid that was a part of the Meridia testing, the same dark fluid that allows the Squith, the Illuminate, to use the Meridia supercontingency, the black hole, as a wormhole exit for the Great Host to invade us from. Something that was brought into faction because we were the ones that detonated the bomb that turned Meridia, a out-of-control hive world, into a black hole. And then that black hole came under effect with the Squith. And the Squith started using it as a war campaign platform, where they use the fact that that it exists to then physically move the wormhole across the galaxy to use the effects of a black hole to destroy planets in its wake. They destroyed Angel's Venture, they destroyed the planet in front of Angel's Venture after we destroyed Meridia, and then used that launching point to attack the 4 barrier planets and raise Mars on their way to attack Super Earth at the beginning of Battle of Democracy. Or, excuse me, at the heart of Democracy, for the Battle of Super Earth. And then, the fights that we fought across the megacities, which was the involvement and the encouragement and the inclusion of this new update, then led to us having to literally fight to save the planet from invasion. Despite multiple people saying to the difference, it wasn't entirely in the hands of the players to decide if we won that fight or if we lost that fight. They had an outcome for if we won, they had an outcome for if we lost. We, collectively, fought together, and that was before the Helldivers from the Xbox Helljumpers, were involved in the players' basis community. The only thing that we can't factor for is the global impact modifier, which dictates how many people are online and how effective all the liberation around the game table actually is. Depending on how it is ran right now, the impact modifier is very, very low, where you have to have a significant number of people on the table playing in the environment at the same time. So the more people who are playing the game actively, the higher the modifier goes to dropping to lower efficacy. I said it backwards. The higher the player count, the lower the actual modifier. The lower the player count, the higher the modifier. Right now, it's not designed in such a way that it's able to support the influx of the new divers because they haven't made it possible for the type of resistances that were designed to fight are capable of being caught and won and fought for. Because a lot of things that they want to do with the game, they haven't explained to us. Like, the last mission orders before last were the last opportunities that they actually had a democracy-intended and guaranteed and forced gambit to teach players how to gambit a planet. So instead of doing extra work to liberate a planet, and then liberating the next, and then liberating the next, they had to learn to go to the planet that we already owned to push them off the planet, stop the attack coming in from that planet, and thus keep the planet being invaded safe from the invader. It's all the things that would happen for a new-time player to be on the board. And the fact that that's how Helldivers 2 works is amazing. Because before, it was just the one person by the name of Joel. Now, Joel has been involved into JOEL, an entire system of moderators that are responsible for the standing operation of the war table and the events that happen on it. As there is the mission order team, who is responsible for calling out the major orders that then push us around the planets and push us around the systems to the other factions. So it's not just everybody fighting the Terminid, everybody fighting the Automatons, everybody fighting the Illuminates. There are parts. You can't blame one diver who fights one front for not fighting on another front. And that, over and over again, becomes a consistency. That idea itself, on paper, is crazy. Because we've tried something like that before. We've had games where it's been cops versus robbers. The last one was APB, which eventually failed as a live service game, and then went live again as a free-to-play, freemium live service game. Because they just didn't have the money, they didn't have the opportunity to support it in a paid, closed-off environment. Unironically doing your part. Most of the time when games exist like this, they die. Because if they don't have the player base to support it, they just don't work. Ironically enough, there are games from the past that actually work exactly like this. One of the ones that are supposed to be coming to the player base soon on Steam is supposed to be what's called inside of Korea Skid Row. But here in America, we recognize as Drift City. Or excuse me, Skid Rush, Skid Row, Drift City International. That's supposed to be coming soon to Steam. A game that came here from Japan and then immediately got ruined by the very annoying people with pronouns in their bio in America was Phantasy Star Online 2. They have a system where it's a 4-man lobby system of an ARPG, but whenever a worldwide event happens in the form of an emergency code, the emergency code allows for 12-man lobbies full of players to fight against the global threat. And the global pushback against that threat, whether they advance to the next stage up to a level of 3 bonuses, the way that it originally worked. I haven't played since New Genesis because I refuse to support a company that would destroy the camaraderie that we had there. The way that it would work, as it should still work in Japan even, is they have to fight up to a level of bonuses by defeating the enemy. Collectively, 12 players are being put into parties of 4. So 3 teams of 4 fight against an NPC enemy. So you could have a table of 4 players, 4 players to a table, playing against a DM that's running the same campaign and is fighting 3 different groups of adventurers at once. Effectively, that's what it was. That's a very cool concept. The same thing exists with events like that in Destiny and Destiny 2. Same thing existed in games that came before it, and games that came before that, and games that came before that. That's supposed to be the idea of what a live service game is supposed to be able to do. Some don't do it the same way, where the live event itself is a living environment action that permanently changes the world, versus the seasons of content that live service games bring. Some games do them poorly, some games do them well. Sometimes you have ARPGs like Path of Exile that design them in a system that is designed to allow you to immerse yourself in the gameplay, and then by nature of how they are always designed to be made, they then move themselves to the next season. All your gear stays on your character. That character moves to non-ladder environments, and then in the next ladder environment, the next season of content, you make a new character, you do it all over again. Or rather, I should say, you level up a character and you take on the new content that's being offered. Because every single update becomes new content that gets added to the core of the game, and then a new environmental option is added that affects the gameplay you'll be having in that season. Games that do this now are things like Once Human. Every seasonal environment, or rather every season, every server you join. Yes, Drift City's coming to Steam. It was announced very quietly, like a few months back. I've been keeping up and up on it ever since, but they don't have an official announced date yet. There is a private server by the name of Drift City Remastered that's run through Discord that you can join and play actively, but it's not the same thing as playing actively with multiple people at 1,000. Because I think there's only about maybe 300 to 1,500 players that play that actively. The same way that people play Toontown Rewritten. I lost my train of thought. Nope, found my train of thought again. The same way that you can have people interacting in these ways and participating in this content is based entirely on that person's particular way of playing, especially in things like Once Human, where every season in Once Human is a different environment, a different setting, and a different interaction with the map. Originally, there was only 2 types of scenarios, and then different modifiers of those different scenarios. There was the PvPs, and there was the PvMs. So you had the PvE environment, where everybody was fighting against the monsters, and then you had the PvP environment, which was clan behavior. Normal shit. People didn't like the fact that they were getting bored of playing the same systems and same scenarios. They then invented the next PvE scenario. People got bored of that, even though it was different, but still kind of the same. Only because some people were exhausting themselves very quickly on the content, which is another argument entirely. They got angry about it, complained about it. The devs said, okay, we hear you, here's new shit. And they gave them No Man's Sky levels of updates. Boom, boom, doom. New update systems, new grinding capabilities, new reworks of the systems that were grindy and were non-rewardative. Increased rewards on top of those increased systems. Grandfathered systems that were better for them. New weapons, new updates, new items, new scenarios, new global modifiers. Because it was designed to be a type of game you are not only meant to play as mayflies, traveling from server to server, interacting in new content and new environments, but something that you could also do with your friends, who would then make their own warbands, their own teams, and thus ultimately engage in this overall gameplay. If you only want to play PvP, you could play PvP only. You wanted to play PvE, you could play PvE. And every season, that was 100% new, and the content was 100% fresh, and nobody knew what was happening, you just have fun playing the game. That's what tabletop is supposed to be. You're not supposed to know everything. You're not supposed to metagame everything either. But unfortunately, in this environment that we currently live in right now, with the people who play games as they do, they don't like not having ultimate power and control. It's really fucking silly. It's really fucking silly. And I don't know why there are people who are willing to do that, while at the same time not respecting what should be easy to understand and accept. I don't know why, but that is what they do. But that is what people do. And it's very boring, in my opinion, every time that it happens. I'm only one person. I'm only one man. But I do think that it is possible for us to do better than this. And the only reason why we haven't done better in recent possible years is that most people who put themselves in that scenario, playing those types of games, are bought in on the idea of, this is fun, but what if I was the one who dictated what was fun? Because that's the way that they were told to get into the game. There's very much a part of this that is controlled by the leftist paradigm, and how they see what should be fun. It's very much... itchy. It's very much a way of, you should do what I believe. Versus anything else a person could be involved with or in. It's very simple understanding. Very easy understanding. But the way that most people treat it, they treat it like a backwards affectation. And it's really bad when it happens like that because of it. Because it's a decision that they're making. In my opinion. It's a decision that they're making. They make a decision to rob other people of fun And I think we all know the reason why they do that. Because if they can't be the source of the fun, they're going to be the person who's responsible for stopping the fun. And as we all know, that's game cringe. And truly, those people will never get it. It's not a very high bar, truthfully. It's not a very high bar to meet. You just have to act like a human being. And I think the problem with that is that there are people who are unwilling to remember the human. In my true heart opinion, I believe that is the problem. The general problem and opinion is that people will not remember the human. Because I remember when the left used to claim that its position was to remember the human. And maybe they just got really, really comfortable. Whatever the reasoning that one could think of, that's how things are now. The only thing that most of us can do is react accordingly. I certainly don't like when people do something like that in the games that I play, but I've learned to just accept that.
Wow.
The amount of people who see things my way are not the same. Maybe they never were the same. Because I'm a younger person. I started playing video games around the time that Diablo 2 was a thing. But, you know, the idea of the table, it allows them to forget themselves, and thus they forget the human. And I feel that the best thing possible is to remind them that that's not how any of this works. It's not how any of this works at all. But how do you convince somebody of something that they are so dedicated towards when it just comes so naturally? That's at least my view. Anyways, I've yapped. I've yapped for very long. And it appears that my computer is telling me that I need to install updates. So let's finish playing out this hand of Ballionaire. And then I think I'll go offline for a bit. And then come back online to stream my side of the debate. Because I don't think I feel comfortable streaming the entire way through it today. Because certainly I want to stop at some point so I can make it easier to cut that VOD out for later. I'm actually surprised you didn't already know about the impending release of Drift City, Alex. I thought you would have already known about it. Ouch. should have known that the subject of his EZRBV would lead to a yapologist. Well, Volgreath, I'm not known for being very short about answers about things. But that's because I actually think a lot about stuff. There's no announcement out anywhere, and the 2 discords for private servers are not actively vocal, and you are a furry if I'm inside of a human-centered server. True. I'm not exactly known for being an individual who's exactly known for being short-winded all the time. I like to consider a lot of answers when I talk about things, because I actually take people's opinions in a lot. Where people think where I just talk to, like, hold attention, it's because I'm trying to consider all those positions that otherwise people would have ignored about. Sometimes it's to my detriment, because there are people who think I'm just yapping just for the sake of hearing my own voice. But I went to school for game design. So on the subject of games, I know a lot. And I like to talk about it. Because, like, the people who want to just simply get an answer to, like, hey, bro, what's the best gun to use? I don't know. What kind of gun do you like using? Bro, I want to know what the best gun to use is! Why don't you tell me what the best meta gun is? What do you like to use? Bro, why are you trying to gatekeep information? Why are you trying to gatekeep information? I just asked what the best meta gun was! What do you like to use? Because any question itself begs the question for more details. And sure, you can give a person a short-ass answer and say, the best gun to use is the Coyote on Helldivers 2 because it has medium penetration and it does fire at the same time. Oh, right, bet, thanks! But if you do that long enough, people are just simply shortcutting answers. If they can't make their own decisions, they're helpless to begin with anyways. And they don't really want advice, they want confirmation bias for their own beliefs. Because one of the things that I believe, both as a player and as a game designer and developer, as well as a hacker, which this also translates over to emulation, is that people play video games the way that they live their life. If they want to play a game that has interest and nuance, they play a game that has interest and nuance. If all they want to do is turn their brain off, then they'll play something that is an autism simulator, that scratches the particular itch that that person has, and they'll play with that nuance. That is it. That is how it works. That is how it has always worked. That is how it will always be interpreted for them at their level. They don't want to go any higher than that. Here's what Helldivers 2 might ask of you. Here's what you could put into it. Here's where most people need it. Up here, when I ask them things like, well, what do you like using? I could then tell them, oh, do you like using SMGs? Yeah, bro, I want the best SMG in the game. I could give them the statistical, factual answer of the best statistical weapon, but I could also tell them, okay, here's its cons, and here's its pros. I don't want anything that's weak, I only want what's strong. Well, I'm sorry, it's not like that. Man, that's bullshit. A good example is that inside of Helldivers 2, there is an SMG called the SMG Halt. It comes inside of the Truth Enforcer bundle, which in and of itself, some people would look at as war bonds. You have to unlock it with medals. It only has 25 ammo capacity in the damn SMG. But I think you should be able to use it one-handed. Unfortunately, most SMGs, especially the ones that can be used one-handed, they are light penetration. They're breach band tools. They're not designed to be two-handed assault rifles that can be able to have higher levels of penetration, because they're designed to shred through soft targets. If you want a tool that can shred a harder target at a higher difficulty, you can use a supply weapon to supply it. But even then, in saying that, there are people that say that's too many goddamn words. It's retarded as fuck. Because if you wanted to do the nuance, or excuse me, if you wanted to remove the nuance, why are you even asking me? Why don't you tell me what you think is good? And then we have a discussion about it. That's what nerds do. We have debates about shit. Why did you come into the place designated and designed for textbook discussion, expecting somebody to give you a one-word reply? That doesn't make sense! It's much like people that will say things about debates. Like, you don't have to watch the debate if you don't want to watch something that a person has to say. You can say that all debates are gay and lame and cringe because you have an opinion about things like blood sports or not. But the argument's gonna be had whether you like it or not. Especially when it's the way the content creates their content. If you think the content creator yaps too much, why are you listening to him? On top of being self-defining, it's also self-defeating. Like, I should be allowed to create and express the way that I want. And at the same time, it provides the context. Because if I only answered in short-form answers, I wouldn't be a very entertaining content creator. It's especially important when it comes to call and response. Most broadcasts, people, they think live streams are a perpetually ongoing party, right? There's always something happening. There's always something going on. There's always somebody talking in chat. The chat's moving a mile a minute. That's not how it works. It is a person that made the choice to turn their camera on, and they are giving everybody, including themselves, the opportunity to do a series of things. And the things that they are trying to give them the ability to get involved into could be as simple as, I want to give this person a chance to have fun with what I'm doing. I want this person to have fun with the concept that I'm involving and engaging myself in. I want this person to have fun with the material that I am currently engaged and involved in. And I want them to have the knowledge of feeling like they are appreciated as I talk to them about it. That requires a real human interaction. If they don't get that real human interaction, I have failed them at a categorical level. That's not the way most people see it. It's not the way most people see it. It's not the way that most people interpret it. And that's okay. People are allowed. They are allowed to disagree. They're allowed to disagree. They're allowed to not like. They are allowed these things. They just do not get to decide that something isn't what it is. Because that's when things become pedantically annoying. I believe for almost all parties involved, to be honest. Because the majority of the time, when a person gets involved, and they try to have fun having conversations with other people, short or long form, I think a lot of people are just used to a person just accepting that this is what people must be expected to do. Which is silly and stupid. Because what about all those chatters that could be inside those live streams that have 0 viewers? Especially if they're not just having a lurker there in chat. Assuming that there's actual people in the chat room and they're not broodbotting. They should be allowed to be involved in ways they want to be involved in. And people should not be able to rob them of that level of expectation and involvement. Because that's what people do nowadays. They steal fun from other people. They steal entertainment value, and they steal reactions, and they steal opportunities. And they tell them, if you don't behave the way that I tell you to, you're not actually a really good content creator. You're not actually a really good person. And I think that's ridiculous. Because if you've ever been in the chat room of a creator that you respect, you know that the way that that content creator interacts with the chat room is completely dependent on how those chatters choose to treat a content creator. Especially if that person is comfortable with yapping as they do. Because they like to have fun and have conversations with their chat room. That they otherwise will not be able to have fun with. Because the other people decided, the streamer talks too much, so actually I'm gonna spam that they need to shut up. The content creator is trying to express a deep thought, but I'm not capable of meeting them where they are and meeting them intellectually where they're at. I need them to dumb things down for me because I'm too incapable of doing that. And then when challenged and called out about it, they have to be willing to say, actually, you're just bullying us because you're not letting us have the ability to do that, because that shit gets irritating really fast. And content creation is supposed to be about real people with real opinions, not people who are constantly trying to fucking say opinions that they know are gonna get controversial hits, and then trying to fucking give the goddamn horde what they want anyways. You're supposed to have a fucking stance. You're supposed to have a stance and you're supposed to be able to talk about it. But that's too much. In and of itself. Yapping itself creates a never-ending conflux of issues. Because what a person might mean by yapping has been poisoned by people who will just take words and make them mean things that they shouldn't mean. And I think that is a giant fucking abysmal choice. Big, huge. Big and huge, big and huge. Okay. Oh damn, yawning. Over time, it'll change. New audiences, new people, new interactions, new investments. They'll come and they'll go, and people will filter in and filter out of content creation and out of consumption of content creation. But the fact that authenticity is not rewarded, people are doing 90 strategies of faking it until they make it, alongside the idea of not just cheating their audiences and cheating their views, but with lying about their audiences and views, for opportunity from either dark money on one side of the issue, or from botting likes and botting content on another side of the issue, or from being politically platformed to that position as another. I want to be the only Carl in a room full of fucking wallflowers. Because that's who I am. And me talking is connected to that. Does that mean that I have to yap when unironically something that I should have said effectively in a debate only required a sentence and I said 4 paragraphs? That's not effective of my time. But this is now dependent on the setting. If I'm respectful of my time, I should be respectful of theirs, and I should get to the cold brass tacks of the point. Because that's being rhetorically effective. When it comes to me having fun, I should be capable of saying whatever the fuck I want. The same way anybody else should be able to say what the fuck they want. Otherwise, we're doing shit. Anyways. Going up to the end here. don't think we can fit any more reactions to the board. Let's skip. Last drop. So yeah, that's what I think of it. And the fact that there are people who don't think that that's how it should work, it highly depresses me. Very highly. Because everybody wants to say, if you have something to say, you should make a video, you should make a video, you should make a video, you should make a video. But I think people should do live streams more.
Wow.
I take very cold comfort in the fact that this is not a new phenomenon, merely the scale is new. It is. The rate at which there are people who are going into content creation and thus are effectively disrespecting content is not a small number. It is not a small number, not by any margin. The number is way too fucking big. Way too fucking big. I don't want to place this. Yes, I do. You remove the trigger, use one charge, gain a fresh draft. One charge is destroyed. Last drop. Man, my feed's gonna blow up before it ends 4 content and then Charlie Kirk. Yeah, it's unfortunate, Alex, but it is what it is. It is what it is. works. Maybe I can make it work. I'll use move the teleporter. Very nice. But yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. I feel like my brain is going because my body's probably telling me I need to eat food, despite how much I ate last night. But the amount of people inside of content creation that are in content creation just to be influencers that influence nothing, with meaningless drivel, never-ending drama, and live streams like that of Punished Mother Merrick, are the kinds of individuals that are why content is the way it is. Too many people are faking it till they make it, and too many people are fucking things up for everybody else. That, companies don't want to do business with us because we are actively making shit worse.
Wow.
Let's get this. Need more water balls. I think I move that. This probably actually should be this. Not to mention fucking Hassan. God, I hate that guy. Ironically enough, Hassan has only been showing up in my mentions as of the fact that he was trying to say, come on guys, stop the violence guys, come on, guys, stop the violence guys. Because he knows he's on the chopping block. As I was saying in the voice of Snowboarder Kids, that's not enough. That's never going to be enough. Hassan's not happy that he's not making more money off of wishing for death and violence. To your left. Two drops left, I think. Yeah. I can't think of where to place these. I'm shipping. But we won, chat. We did it. Us, together, with my brain and your conversations, and also the helpful suggestions of the one guy who was in Twitch. Yeah. You're dipping out. Thanks for the thoughts and best of luck with the debate. Thank you, Wolgrith. I appreciate it. Hope to see you around again in the future. It's about 4:11. Yeah, I think this would be a good time to stop the live stream for now. I'll probably come back again at 30 minutes till the debate. See what happens. Thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate it. Bye bye now.